Let me welcome everybody. Let me welcome you to the Future Trends Forum. My name is Brian Alexander. I'm the forum's creator, host, chief cat herder, and your MC for the next hour as we explore the future of education and technology. Welcome, everybody. I'm very glad to see and hopefully soon hear all of you. Before we get started, before we welcome our guest, let's just dive into the background of where the Future Trends Forum comes from, how it works, how it's supported, and how you can interact with us. So to begin with, you should know that the forum is the discussion-based spin-off of the Future Trends in Technology and Education report. FTTE is a monthly trends analysis that looks at major trends impacting and shaping education and technology around the world. We've been doing this for years. We have a map of almost 100 trends that we've been tracking. So this gives you some interesting intelligence trying to look ahead to where education could be going. If you haven't seen it yet, go to ftte.us, you download some sample issues, and take a look. Now, the FTTE report and the forum are both part of a broader overall project called the Future of Education Observatory. So if you go to futureofeducation.us, you can find out more information. This is a multimedia, social, ongoing, and open attempt to try to better understand where education is headed. This includes the forum, this includes the report, this includes a blog, this includes a bookstore, this includes a book club, and more material to come. So please check it out if you haven't seen it. Now, as you can see from the next slide, when I talk about this as a worldwide effort, it really is a transnational discussion. Because when we take a look at where education is going, where technology is going, it's important to recall that they're not really restricted to national boundaries. And as we increasingly teach, learn, think, and build across international boundaries, and we've been trying to live this in the forum. And over the past years, we've had multiple guests from around the world. We had conversation from just about every continent. But please, as we talk today, think about where things are going, not just where you are or in your nation or your region, but at the national, international level. Now, next slide, please. In order to think about where the forum comes from, we also have to be very grateful and attentive to the people who support it. So I'd like to begin by thanking NYSERNet in New York State. This is a nonprofit that helps get that state's colleges, universities, and other institutions on broadband internet, and we're very grateful to them for their support. We're also really grateful to Shindig, because as you can see, Shindig makes available this technology that we're using right now. So let me just take a minute to walk you through and show you how it works. This is a video conferencing platform that's based on discussion. And where I am right now, and where this slide is for the next minute, is called a stage. And everybody can see and hear what's going on the stage. This is where our guest is going to be, and this is where you can all join us as well. In fact, we can have up to 4 different people appear at any given time. Now, below us is what I think of as the participant swarm, or the audience space. If you look down, you can see people like, you can see Richard Price, you can see Tom Hames, you can see Roxanne Riskin, all these different people signing in from around the world. And if you'd like to talk to one of those people privately, you can simply double-click on their icon, and your 2 icons will snap together if they don't talk with you. You can have your own private audiovisual conversation. And over the next hour, you'll be able to watch how these different logins will shift, sign in, move back and forth. You can see individual people. Now, there are 4 different ways you have for interacting with different people here. And I want to break these down and give you the options so you can participate in the ways that are most comfortable for you. Look down at the very bottom of the screen. You'll see a white strip running along it that has a few different buttons. Each of those has some options for you. So on the far left side, you'll see a button that looks like a few different heads with a kind of dialog box. If you click that, up will pop 2 different windows. On the left side is kind of film strip showing everybody who's participating in this video conference right now. So you can scroll through and see Brian Gardner and Karen Whitfield, and you can see Insaya, and you can see Richard Price, and you can click on them to learn a little bit more about each one of them. Now to the right of that is a chat box, and the chat box has the ability to communicate through text with everybody here. So right now we can see Maria Andersen, Tom Hames, and Susan Sanborn joking about Russian hackers. Good Lord, I missed that. That's a really easy way to converse, and I'll be monitoring you throughout the hour. So if you'd like to toss off ideas, questions, or hyperlinks, that's a really great place for doing it. Now, back to that white strip. Next to that little dialog box is a circle with a question mark in it. That gives you the chance to type in a question or comment that we can then throw on the screen for everyone to see, and I'll read out loud for everyone to hear. So if you have a specific question for Maria or myself, you can try that. Now, if your microphone is working, if your camera is working, simply click on the raised hand button. Now, if you click that, that'll tell us that you'd like to join us on stage. And it's easy to do. If you just click that, when the time is right, we'll beam you on stage and you can join us to ask questions. So that's really, really easy to do. So again, use that click that raised hand to join us on stage, click the question mark to just throw us a question, use the text box to type in questions and comments as we go. And on top of that, if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag FTTE, and that'll let you throw in questions and comments. I'll be monitoring that throughout the hour as well. Again, what I'm doing right now, talking to you, is unusual. What this hour is really about is your contributions, your questions, your conversation. And we're very grateful to Shindig for making this technology available for us to make it happen. We're also grateful to our supporters on Patreon. If you haven't seen it, Patreon is a crowdfunding site, kind of like Kickstarter or GoFundMe, which lets people crowdfund a creative person, a creative project. In that case, the project is our work here with the future of education. So we have people on Patreon that contribute as little as $1 a month to keep the lights on, the technology humming. People like, well, you can see here on the slide, Tom Hames, Michael Slade, Jeannie Kim Han, Paul McConaughey, Kyle Johnson, Bob Johnson, Robin DeRosa, Corey S., lots of folks that are very kind and generous. If you haven't seen it, go to patreon.com/Brian Alexander and join us. We're really grateful for your support. And we're grateful to everybody who supports us on Patreon. Now, that's who supports us. That's how the technology works. That's where the forum comes from. Let's cut to the chase with this week's guest. I'm very, very happy to introduce Maria Andersen. Maria is someone I've known for years. She is a futurist. She is an entrepreneur. She is a math professor. She's one of the most sparkling and visionary people in the field of education and technology. I'm delighted to connect you all on the forum with her right now. Welcome, Maria.
Thanks for having me. I'm trying to sparkle.
You're already sparkling. Glad to see you. Very glad to see you. Just to begin with, first of all, out in Salt Lake City, what are you working on this year? What's occupying you professionally the most?
Well, I started a company in the late fall of 2016, and so I'm running a company as a CEO and kind of a head of product. So that's, it's a little bit of time to do those things. We have a team of people, and you get a new set of responsibilities, and it's your on your shoulders to make sure everybody's families keep getting fed, and the product is working for our customers. So the company is called Coursetune, and we can talk about that too if you want.
Oh, that's fantastic, and we will be talking about that. Well, I'm delighted. Congratulations on successfully launching it and seeing it grow. Your background is fascinating and kind of unusual in many ways for an entrepreneur. I mean, you've been a math professor at a community college. You worked with Instructure on campus and educational technology. You're also a well-known speaker and consultant in the field of the future of education. That's a wonderful background, and it brings together all kinds of great capacities and experiences.
Thanks. I think I just get bored easily. So there's always something else, that I want to be working on the side, right? So
something shiny.
Something shiny, exactly.
Well, let's begin by talking right now about your thoughts about where the future of education technology is headed in the next few years. You just came back from the ASU GSV conference, where you've been meeting with entrepreneurs and also investors, and you've been seeing Coursetune through the world. So this has given you another level of insight into where education and technology are going. What are some of the big directions that you see? What are some of the big trends that we should be paying attention to?
Well, I think that, like most educational technology, there's a lot of hype right now around how amazing AI is going to be. And I would say it's mostly hype right now. I was just kind of reflecting on some of the technologies that we thought would really impact and change education and just how little it has. So I was just thinking, there was, we've had all sorts of online. So math, for example, is really interesting because it's always the first subject to fall to technology. And by that, I mean, it's the easy thing to program if you're a computer programmer, right? So
Right.
every ed tech entrepreneur at some point thinks, I'm going to build a math app because like it's just like a computer program, right? And yet with all the math apps in the world and all of the technology we have for teaching math online and self-paced math and game-based math, and I actually saw at the conference like a headset you wear while you learn arithmetic to help you do brain-based teaching. I thought was kind of ridiculous. Because, like you're teaching arithmetic, what's the point, but anyways, math is always the first subject to fall. So we've seen a lot of hype around like how much things are going to change and how irrelevant teachers are going to be. And what we see is that over and over and over, that is not the case, right? And so I remember the San Jose MOOC experiment, for example, where, we're going to teach developmental education. And so I think that, we've tried all sorts of easy technology with math. We've tried personalized learning. We've tried game-based learning. We've tried, online learning in various forms. And we keep coming back to very little improvement in results because I think there's this whole component to learning that is outside the realm of how we deliver content and interaction and engagement with students. And that's the relationship students have outside of school, the environment that surrounds them, their motivation, the things, there's a hurricane in my life. There's so much that goes on outside of just here's nice content, engage with it. And, we may have a kind of a plateau, like we may not be able to get to 100% of people learn algebra at a competency of 90%, not because they're not capable of it, but because there's so much outside of the content that gets in the way. And it's not to say that the student might not learn it ever. They just might not learn it this year, right? And I think that's the tricky part, right? So unless we're going to provide like strong social services that take care of kids, take care of parents, feed everybody, make sure everybody is housed, unless we're going to like cover all of the relationships and environment that students live in, I don't think the technology is going to continue to improve much past the plateau we already see. All we can maybe do is hope to drive costs down. And that's even not a very good, I just don't think the technology costs something, right? So as you start to replace instruction with technology, the technology gets as expensive as it can in the market, right? So I don't know, I'm a little skeptical that we just haven't seen results from personalized learning. We've been doing that for years now. And I'm sure math will fall first to AI. And there's a lot of advertising going on right now for math programs about, how it's all being done magically. Overnight, it was like they all shifted from personalized learning to AI, just, with a search and replace in their text. And I don't think it's happening yet. It's just algorithms, right? And the algorithms were already there.
Do you think this is fascinating, and I think you'll see people agreeing. Although, of course, because you mentioned math, there's naturally discussion of math happening in the chat box now.
Of course.
You're accustomed to this. But do you think, I'm just thinking of the past year, I'm thinking of the public teacher strikes in West Virginia and right now in Arizona. I'm thinking of the great work of Sarah Goldner-Grab, who was a guest in the forum, talking about the importance of non-academic factors in student life. Do you think, is it possible that we'll see greater pressure for that kind of social support? That either we'll see state services expand, or we'll see things like perhaps expanding financial aid, or we might see something at the very least more food pantries, that kind of thing.
I would love to say yes, but I think it's really dependent on how the politics goes, right? Yeah. I think teachers are clearly advocating across the country for better support services. I mean, we have teachers who are saying, I don't care if you give us the full raise, but would you please go back to funding the full education package, right? Because this is important that students have lunches, and all of these things are vitally important, right? And, the only reason I talk about math is because of all the subjects, math is the easiest one to teach with a computer. And if we can't teach math well with the computer, what makes us think that we're going to be able to teach, humanities uh, and medicine and things like that with a computer, right? Like the very easiest
Yes.
thing we can't get a handle on. And I just don't think without all these other things in place, we're ever going to approach the kinds of numbers that people aspire to get. And rightly so, we should aspire to get to those numbers, but there's so much that goes into learning. It's
Yes.
complicated.
Well, those are two really good things to think about. I really appreciate that. You've got this question of the whole context around the academic and limitations of how much we can automate. And if we can't get math, well, maybe math is the one that we should be focusing on. Maybe math is the canary.
Well, I think there's even more to that conversation though, because we're still teaching the math of the 1950s, and we don't live in
Wow.
the 1950s. We're almost to 2020, and everybody has a device, and that device is more powerful than the computers that sent man to the moon. And yet we're teaching I actually, this may be kind of controversial, but I actually welcomed Common Core. If we could get Common Core to all 50 states, then we could start shifting the curriculum in a positive way away from 1950s math and towards math of this decade and this century. Right? But we can't do that as long as 50 states are doing 50 different things. It's not sustainable. Right? And so the only way to do it is to first get the whole country on the same page and then start to shift it, right? It's the same thing with higher education. When I was teaching as a community college instructor, I was locked between high school and four-year schools. And I could not alter my curriculum unless it would transfer to four-year schools and students could be successful coming out of high school. So even if I could build the world's best modern curriculum, I couldn't teach it. Right? So we can say all we want about, it's really important to have academic freedom, but I think academic freedom is around how you teach it, not what learning objectives you teach, right? The learning objectives for a course, I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't actually agree that there are 4 flavors of calculus and I teach one of these 4 flavors and that's transferable to other schools, right? Or something like that. I mean, there are solutions here that have to happen on a national scale, and without that, I think it's
that's so hard since we're so disintegrated in the United States. We don't have a central system. But before I follow that, there were 2 questions that came in the chat, and just friends, let me just remind you, the chat box is a great place for this. But also keep in mind you can ask a question on the little question mark button, or you can join us at the stage. We had a question from Jim Holton who wants to know, wouldn't foreign language be easier than math for online learning?
I think foreign language is probably about on a level of math in terms of complexity. I think clearly we have, I don't know if any of you guys have tried Duolingo. It's really great for learning some basic kind of phrases and being able to recognize words you see and things like that. But I could not walk into a conversation and start talking with somebody in real time based on using that computer software, right? I would gain some recognition, but I wouldn't have fluency. And I think that fluency comes from actually talking to another person in real time with that. And they're doing some interesting things with bots. And so you can do some things with chat bots where you're kind of chatting back and forth. But even then, that's not the same thing as a real-time conversation that moves as fast as you and I talking, right? So whenever I hear somebody speaking Spanish, I'm like, whoa, I caught one word of that. If I read it slowly, I can catch a lot more. So I do think that I think we can do technology-assisted education. I'm not arguing against that because clearly if we shift what we do in person, we can give students a better experience and a deeper experience and more engagement that leads to transferability of the material to other subjects and to harder problems and things like that. Things we can't get to if we just focus on content, right? So in my ideal world, you move all of the things that are kind of rote in the curriculum we teach, learning vocabulary words in a language, which you kind of have to do until we have implant loaded language, right? And so we move that to technology and then take the time with the humans to engage in deeper things. Like, it's a waste of class time to just drill on vocabulary when you can drill on vocabulary with technology,
Anywhere.
right? Yeah. So I'm not arguing that we shouldn't use technology at all. I'm just saying there's a limit to, even in these very easy to turn into computer oriented, teaching subjects, we aren't getting very far yet. And so when I read articles that are like, AI is going to change everything, AI is trained with existing data sets. Existing data sets are biased. We already have data sets that many ed tech companies say they're using to get to better teaching algorithms, and we're not seeing great results from that yet. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical that AI is going to actually have the kind of impact for learning that anytime soon. It's not happening anytime soon.
Well, that's a very good question. Well, alongside AI, we had a question from Meg, who wants to know. She asks, "You list the technologies that did not do well. What technologies do you see as working well now that we can build upon?"
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think okay, so I do see some really great potential. So the current technologies I think that work well are technologies implemented well, right? So discussion forums implemented well. So not just post once, reply twice, but more carefully crafted variety of discussion. Choose the discussion you want to be in, interact in meaningful ways. So I think discussion done well works. I think that synchronous active sessions work. I think that a lot of the, when you have a choice between content that's delivered passively and content that has an active engagement component, where there's like formative assessment questions built into the reading, that's definitely better, right? It's definitely better than just reading the text. So I think those things do well and can still be improved on. I think the potential that I'm excited about is VR for experiential learning. So, for example, we know that, say, first-year teachers, when they go into their, before they even get to their first year, when they go to do their student teaching experiences, many times those students get like the shock of their lives and they switch majors, when they go to do student teaching. Well, we could, using like VR, let them experience what it's like to be in a real classroom for hours and hours and hours, in their early college career, so that they feel more comfortable when they show up for the first time in person and are the center of attention, and they're in maybe an urban area that they've never been to, an urban school district, or they're in a very diverse classroom, or a classroom where there's 20 different languages spoken, right? So we could simulate that with VR and the beautiful thing about VR, if it's done with a photorealistic VR, I'm not talking cartoon VR, but photorealistic VR, is that you have the memory of being there because you were in the room and you looked around and you got that like scary feeling about all these kids running around you, blabbering in different languages, and so we could create comfortability in situations that sometimes act as a barrier to success for students. We could create comfortability with new nurses by letting them experience various situations that happen very rarely in the real world, but they could experience them in VR, so they have a memory to draw on of how that was dealt with when they were in the room and that happened, right? And the memory you create in a photorealistic VR is very different than the memory you create by watching something on the screen, right?
Right.
You actually recall it like you were in the room. And so I think that those memories actually do get stored differently. And so I think that has great potential, and like that could be really exciting. Now, we're not going to be teaching all subjects with VR. Like I just giggle when I see sessions that are like, let's teach math with VR. I'm like, let's not. Because it's a lot of money and time sunk in and learning a new technology when it's not necessary, right? There are places where I think VR will be absolutely fantastic and necessary. It makes me wish I taught a different subject so I could go do it. But the answer is not bring technology to your subject just because you want to learn VR. The answer is, well, go learn another subject if that's more appropriate for the technology if you're excited about it, right? So
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
Well,
so I think that's a great potential, and I think we're starting. Some of the insurance companies are starting to do VR simulations for agents. Hotels are starting to do VR simulations for customer training. So I really think that for those types of learning where you really need to rely on experience, that's going to be fantastic.
In the chat box, Keita Johnson says theater, for example, where
yes,
immersive experiences. Meg, what a fantastic question, a very deep question, and Maria, thank you for this great answer. We have more questions that are coming in. Christopher,
I just want to add something for theater. I just had this thought.
Please.
You know how we have karaoke? Can you imagine theateroke? Right? You put on your VR goggles, you're on the stage playing a particular character. The words come across the screen at the appropriate times, and you get to act out a character in a play or a movie, and then your friends can watch it on the TV, over here. How fun would that be? We should all stop right now and build that app. Bye.
Okay, friends, you heard it. Maria has given you your assignment.
Yeah.
Kisa, thank you for mentioning. Actually, in the 1990s, when I was in grad school, I was working on the idea of using VR to create plays that you couldn't normally do because they were designed before special effects that were powered for that. A little ahead of time. Thank you for the assignment, Maria. And Kisa, the two of you have to connect. You're two brilliant, brilliant people. Christopher, what's the next question that's just come in? We have one from Jim Holton, who mentioned national standards. Do you think Common Core is a good start for national standards?
I do. I think Common Core is a good start. I think maybe a little overly complex in that it's really hard for people to implement. And I think a lot of time was put into creating the standards without a lot of help for parents. There should have been a national help for parents effort that went along with Common Core, so that parents didn't feel so left behind by the new ways of doing things. But there definitely is a greater focus on understanding the concepts and not the algorithms, which is, what's driving all the parents nuts because they don't know the algorithms and not the concepts. But in general, I wish that all the states would just say, you know what, it is super expensive to develop your own curriculum and your own standards and your own tests when there's a 90% overlap with Common Core. And, if the states would just stop wasting their money, if everybody would get on the same page, and we would say, we need to do what's best for students and for educational systems. And that means we teach. Nobody's telling you how to teach it. And they've said that over and over and over. Nobody's telling you what activities to use and what projects to do and what books to use. They're just saying these are the learning objectives you need to get to, right? And if we can all just get on that page and agree that we don't always agree on every single detail, but there needs to be a standard, then we can start to shift, right? So that we can say, okay, this one is too complicated. Let's remove it. Or, hey, data science is becoming more important in today's careers. Let's add more data science and remove some of the algebra. We could do that on a national level. And we could provide training on a national level. And that is at scale, right? So we talk all the time about education at scale. And what we mean is we're going to put 1,000 learners in one course and they're all going to be successful. But the real scale here is getting the economy of scale in the training and the curriculum development, and all these really expensive things. We would be saving a lot of money if curriculum providers didn't have to provide curriculum to 50 different states with 50 different standards, right? It's crazy.
We have some different responses that popped up in the chat box to that. Joe Murphy from Ohio asks, isn't it harder to change national standards than local ones?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, the politics are hard for this.
It is super hard. And it cracks me up that people rejected, of all things, math standards, right? Of all of the things that we can mostly agree on, like pi is, pi, and 2 plus 2 is 4. And like,
Yeah.
there's only so much controversy you can generate around math, right? The only real controversy is algorithm versus concept. It's not like it's religious. It's not like it's political.
Right.
I totally agree with you, Tom. Maybe if we'd had better standards in place while educating our congressmen, we'd be in a better place right now.
Did you watch? Did you watch the Zuckerberg discussion in front of the Senate and Congress?
Yeah, I caught some of it between meetings. Yeah, it was super high drama television, high drama streaming there.
I wasn't just thinking of the drama. I was just thinking of what it revealed about the knowledge of Congress creatures about technology. And that was really.
But you know what? He couldn't answer. These are really complex issues, right? And Zuckerberg couldn't answer all the questions about his own company, nor did I fault him for it, because it's a huge company. There's no way he knows what every algorithm at the company does, right? And he deferred to other people when he couldn't answer questions.
And so I think, and there's actually a good supercut of all the times where he deferred. And I don't think he necessarily
thinking WhatsApp, email, that wasn't fantastic. Things. There were a couple good in there, but there's always going to be. When we see the same thing when we look at science, we see the same thing when we look at education, right?
and it makes it worse. That makes it even more depressing.
Yeah.
No, that's what's so in many ways so sad about this. But let's change things up and let's talk about a more positive example, and an example of I think what you've been talking about the past few minutes, which is your product Coursetune. I've been trying to describe this to people, and often I give them the matrix answer. You just got to use it to understand it. But I talk about it as a way of improving courses through a really unusual visualization approach. How far off am I?
You're good. Yeah. So our short answer for what is Coursetune is we say it's like having AutoCAD for learning design. You can create a blueprint of complex curriculum and look at it and, pivot it and see how things map to each other. So it's kind of like going into a complex blueprint for a house or something. You can look at the electricity, and you can look at the plumbing, and you can, those are all layers of the blueprint, right? And so that's what Coursetune is like. So it's software to help you design, visualize, and collaborate around curriculum. And we particularly, our sweet spot is people who really, really care about high quality curriculum. And, people say, well, what kinds of schools do you have as customers? And our answer is any school that cares about high quality curriculum. Those schools are our customers, right? And we kind of tell this little story or this little metaphor about why you need Coursetune, which is that if you were going to go build a house, you might have, you buy a plot of land that you liked where your house is going to go. And then you go and you talk to an architect or a builder and you get a set of blueprints and you work off that design until the design is the way you like it. And then you bring that blueprint together with your builders to the job site, right? And you build your house. And what we've done in education a little bit too often, especially in higher ed, I think K-12 has actually been much better about this by having standards. But what we've done in higher ed is primarily we buy the job site, which is the LMS, the courseware product, and then we show up and build. And we don't have, and then we say, the big trend right now is data-driven decision making. But very few schools have any data whatsoever about whether students are actually learning what they're supposed to learn, because they don't actually know what they're supposed to be learning. They know how many times they click in the platform. And so there's all sorts of analytics around click data, but there's nothing that ties those clicks to actual learning of what's supposed to be happening, because nobody even knows what's supposed to be happening. Right? So what we think we need to pivot over and say, hey, guess what? Let's actually design what we're supposed to learn in Chem 100, Humanities 200, or whatever. Let's write the learning objectives and the competencies we want, or the course learning objectives we want for students. That is the part that should be consistent and is not really academic freedom. Academic freedom comes in how you teach that, sort of in the learning and assessment activities that you design, right? And so what we want to be able to see is a common core of of learning objectives with a ton of variation and variety for the modality of the course. Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it hybrid? Is it weekend? Is it 8 weeks, 15 weeks, etc.? Of course, the design of the course is going to change because of that. But what you learn in the course shouldn't change. Just how you learn it should change, right? And then with every instructor who does a different variation on the course, that's fine too. But they should still learn the same things, the same basic structure underneath it at your institution, right? So that's kind of what we allow people to do, is create those kinds of complex blueprints for what you want your courses to actually, what you want your students to be learning and your courses to contain, and then how you're going to deliver that, and reporting mechanisms and visualizations and collaborations around all that.
All of that. This is, I think, unique. I can't think of anything quite like this. But before I say more, remember, friends, that there are multiple ways to ask questions, and we're going to show you one of them now because we have a video question that's coming in. So let's see. Oh, we have Kisa. Excellent. So again, remember, friends, the white strip at the bottom of the screen will have different buttons you can press for your different questions and comments. Hey, Kisa.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great.
Good to see you.
So I have a question. Oh, I'm really excited because I demoed the software this week. Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm coming from a learning experience background, and I was just like, I was so tired of using Excel spreadsheets and burning my brain just to make a visualization that goes with my course, because I really understand the path and the journey, and I wanted to make sure the learners were, if I wasn't getting it, the learners weren't going to get it, okay? So kudos on the idea and implementing it. It looks really nice. My question is, what is the definition of a curriculum now? And what is the definition of a curriculum in the future?
Wow. Oh, that's a good question.
Wow.
So I think the definition of a curriculum now is probably, I'm going to talk about artifacts. So when we talk about curriculum now, we tend to think of packages like textbooks and, like a curriculum that goes with your science class if you're K-12, or the course you teach, right? So it could be a courseware product, or it could be a textbook or a collection of OER that basically makes a courseware product or a textbook. I think the curriculum of the future, if you think about how Coursetune is designed, you saw it. So we build off these building blocks of learning objectives, right? And in my ideal future, you can come in and attach anything you have that's a learning asset, and anything you have that's any kind of assessment, whether it's a single question or a complex project or whatever, right to the learning objectives, so that when the student experiences the learning asset or the assessment piece, the data goes where? Goes right to the learning objective, right? That to me is the curriculum of the future. It's designed to go all the way down to what it is the student is learning, and not just here is the curriculum, which is, I think, how it kind of happens right now. But we all have to get better at design for that to happen.
Oh, definitely. Like, okay, so if I were, I was just somebody you met in like Myers or Plum's, like a grocery store. I mean, wait, you're from Muskegon, right? Are you from Muskegon?
I am from Muskegon, yeah.
I am too. Great.
Wow.
Okay, so because I was using Plum's, I was seeing if you were going to catch that. It was a grocery store.
I caught it. And Myers.
If I were in Plum's or something like that, and somebody was like, well, what is the curriculum? What is it? How would you describe it?
For right now, I'd say it's like your textbook. Yeah, it's like your textbook and the set of lesson plans that goes with the textbook.
Okay.
That's how I would describe it to the average person.
All right,
well, it's
thank
really
you.
concise, and that's really accessible. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I just want to thank you. Thank you so much.
And
You're welcome. I'm glad you look at the product this week.
Oh yeah, you know what? In my head, I was just like, people don't understand the work it takes when you're trying to do something really well. Like, they don't appreciate design. Like, they want to say, oh, design thinking. But see, design takes work and takes preservation. Like you have to really be in it to win it, and you want to make sure everything is correct. Well, not just correct, but like it's a great experience. And you want to be a great experience for yourself too, because you want to say, hey, I did that. Hey, here's the plan. Here's the plan of action. So I really love the thought that and the intentionality that went into this product. It looks good.
Thanks. I want to answer Brian's question, can I? About strategic differentiators for institutions and whether you efficiently meet the learning objective. I think it's more than just whether you efficiently meet the learning objective. I think that you can have a course where the students learn, and that's great, but none of them would ever end up majoring in that course based on the class that was taught. So I think there's two components for what educational institutions should do. One is they should absolutely teach what they're supposed to be teaching, right? So
right.
We don't even talk about teaching. They should absolutely create an experience where the students learn what it is they're supposed to learn in that course. But secondarily, it should be transformational to at least some of the students, right? It can't just be checking the boxes on, oh yeah, they learned that. Oh yeah, they learned that. I mean, we've all had the experience, I hope, of being in some class where we were just amazed and astounded by what we learned and excited about it and came up, if we didn't major in it, maybe we have a lifetime hobby of being interested in that subject area because of the transformational experience we had, right? So I don't think it's just efficiency. I think it's also continuous improvement and creating experiences that really are relatable and real to students, right? And I think, again, like, we do have to be able to measure, did the learning happen? And I think that most of us, we have a really hard time doing that right now because the LMSs aren't built to hold learning objectives that are tied to pages and quizzes. And, those are all afterthoughts in learning management systems, if they're there at all, right? So I do think that we need that, absolutely, but I don't think that's it. So I don't think that institutions will just differentiate on, do students learn efficiently? I think they'll also differentiate on, do students like the experience? Are they, do they feel that it's transformational? And that's all part of, is it a good value, right?
There's an interesting book by Andrew Delbanco on higher education, and he says that for him, education is ultimately a conversion experience, where you get converted to anatomy or French or to calculus. That transformative experience is there. But before I say more, we have another question that just came in. Christopher, can you flash this on the screen? This is a text question here. I remember, you can see, friends, how easy it is to ask questions through whatever technology you like to use. Tom wants to know if you can use AutoCAD for various parts of institutional effectiveness. Well, let's do that question first.
Various parts of institutional effectiveness. Yeah. So I think it depends on what you're trying to measure, right? I don't think that Coursetune is going to tell you whether or not you're bringing in students at a high enough rate for your freshman class, right? But if you're looking at things like we have 5 major goals for a graduate of our institution, you can look at how your curriculum connects to those 5 major goals and see which programs are meeting that well and which aren't. If you need to do something like program level assessment, we can show you through the designs exactly where you need to go to assess those program outcomes. You still are going to have to go find them in your LMS or wherever they live, but we can tell you where they are and some properties about what they are, right? It's a long ed tech road, so we may eventually get to the second half of that. Oh, now I can show you where I can get you that data too. But the data has to be hooked up first. I didn't see what the second question you flashed on the screen was.
That's okay. I got the two overlap. This is from Tom Ames in Texas, who wants to know, where does the student come into the curricular planning aspect of Coursetune? How do you do student-driven curriculum?
Yeah, so I think that really is an interesting question, because I think that there are 2 pieces to curriculum development. There's the actual kind of foundation of the curriculum, which I would say it might not be students who need to inform that so much as the surrounding world that needs to inform that. Like if you're trying to prepare students for a career, I'm trying to prepare for a career as an engineer. Is it the student coming in as a freshman I want to talk to about what should go into the foundation of that curriculum, or is it the engineering world that should inform that? And I would say at that level, it's the engineering world. But then I think where the student input comes is as you do the continuous improvement of the learning and assessment activities that go with the curriculum, right? And that's where you can start to look at what are the students really resonating with? What are the new examples that were brought up in class this semester we should make sure to include next semester, and those kinds of things. And we create a collaboration and tracking layer on top of the curriculum that lets you leave notes for like your future self on what it is you want to change for the next semester, right? And have a conversation with the rest of your team. So let's say you're a team of folks teaching Chem 100 and there's 10 sections of it with 10 different teachers, and you all share kind of a master course with that you modify, you know, semester after semester. I think I just swallowed something. Anyways, so if you do that, then I'm going to let you talk for a second.
Take a minute, please. Get some water. I mean, this is one of the things that's fascinating about this, as long as we don't kill our guest, is that we've been doing so much work on assessment for the past generation, and that we haven't still managed to plumb all of that in through learning objectives, through technology, through curricula. So we have these giant disaggregated and disintegrated movements that don't really talk to each other yet. Do you feel better?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. It's okay.
So I think one of the experiences that we've all had in teaching is you leave the classroom or your online, you know, class at some point, and you turn off your computer, you think, did not go as well as I thought it was going to go. Right. I should change that next semester. And then the next semester rolls around and you get to that same point in the curriculum and you realize, guess what? I forgot to make that change, right? And there you are doing it again the exact same way because it's too late. The students already took it and you now remember that you were going to change it, right? And so we create a structure that allows people to kind of check in with the course and make suggestions on it, right? So we call them suggestions very purposely because we want you to be saying proactive things, not just negative things like, I hate this video. Okay, then suggest a change to it, right? So, you know, when you come into the curriculum and make a suggestion, the rest of the people on your team, the rest of the people who teach that course can see your suggestion. You can have a conversation around it. It's very transparent. And whoever it is that coordinates the course can actually move that suggestion over to a to-do item. And that to-do item just sits there waiting for you to issue the course the next semester, right? So when either it's, you know, writing a syllabus or writing the exam or, you know, formulating a new project, putting out the new LMS shell, whatever it is, there is a to-do list in that course of all the things that you gathered over the semester that are just waiting for you to do, right? So especially if you're working with an instructional designer or you're just going to sit down for 2 days and like, all right, I'm pushing out the next version of this course, you actually have all of that, you know, very relatable history. And that's coming from students in most cases, right? And it's coming from the interaction with students. And that's where I think the students really do inform continuous improvement if we actually pay attention to continuous improvement and do it in a very disciplined way. So
we're back to that context around the technology again.
Yeah.
Tom, that's a fantastic question.
Somebody said something about liberal arts education here somewhere, and I just want to tell you about a little vision I have for curriculum before we run out of time.
Please.
So I think that, you know, we talk about certificates and badges and all this stuff, and I think that there's a whole realm of possibility we're just not there yet for things like badges and certificates. So for example, let's say that your institution wants to issue a badge around space, a theme of space, like space, everything having to do with space, because that might be a big industry, right? Or everything having to do with AI or whatever it is, right? If you have a very good curriculum architecture and a very good curriculum map, you can say to faculty, look, we are going to offer a space badge, and a student earns this space badge by participating in 6 classes in which they can produce artifacts that have something to do with the space theme. If
quizzes,
you would
performances, posters, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like you write a paper, you do a project, you build a presentation, you focus a section of study on the technology space, the business of space, the marketing of space. You know, like you do something, you say, I'm willing to be part of this effort. I would actually like to learn about the marketing of space or the technology of space or whatever. And so then you can actually thread that theme through whatever courses at your institution are willing to do it, whatever professors, whatever sections, right? And you could track that if you have a curriculum mapping tool, right? And then we can say, you know, like, okay, so a student who wants to earn this certificate, which sections should we steer them to, or which courses should we steer them to, right? Where, you know, you're still teaching the exact same learning objectives as everybody else. You're just doing it through this lens of space, or this lens of AI, you know, the ethics of AI, the ethics of space. You know, like there's all sorts of ways to do it while still teaching the same curriculum, right? So I think that the real differentiator here and the real possibility for what curriculum can do is not just trying to change courses. You don't need a course on marketing to the space realm, right? You need marketing where the student gets to explore that theme, right? And so I think we're just, if we think creatively about solving this problem, I think we can do some really fabulous things.
As Joe Murphy says in the chat box, mind blown. That's a terrific idea. Friends, we have about 6 minutes to go, and I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to hurl questions at the very brilliant Maria Andersen. So remember, we have the chat box, which is humming along. You saw with Kisa how easy it is just to appear on the video, so if your mic and camera are working, please click that raised hand button. If you'd rather just type in a text question, please hit the ask button. Question mark. I myself have a few more questions, and I'll let you, while everybody else is thinking of their last ones, Maria, let me just ask one. Looking ahead, say, roughly 5 years, where do you think curricular development and course development is going to go? Well, let's assume that more and more people use Coursetune and they follow this, and then more and more people follow your image of better integrating technology, curricula, course guides, and all of this. Where do you see us headed?
I think that if we can get to that place where we actually design around the learning objectives, and you know, our curriculum is built around that instead of around this idea of these large pieces, we're going to have a super flexible curriculum. So I think that we'll get to the point where I can look at a particular student, I can look at their data, and I can say, okay, you got to be in this course, but you really didn't understand this particular competency of the course. So maybe you got to be, you really don't understand interpretation of graphs. And I can then go and lasso a section of curriculum according to that competency and just push it to the student and say, hey, you know what, if you want to do very well in your next math class, why don't you go through this experience, this prescription for learning over Christmas break, and that'll give you a more solid ground for next semester, right? Like if we can get actually down to what students really know after a class, we can get to this kind of more prescription-oriented path around learning that we can't easily do right now. And I think K-12's been trying. They have to do so much personalized learning in K-12 because of IEPs and you know, and parents who ask for specific things, and it's super tough to do it with a book as your guide, right? And publishers who are smart have been trying to make differentiated instruction for all sorts of things, like English as a second language learners and students with specific disabilities, right? But I think that we can get to a better place for all learners if we can get to where the curriculum is more atomized. I just don't think it's going to happen overnight. Going to be a little slow. We first have to know what actually goes into our courses.
Keeps coming back to assessment.
Which means we have to actually design them.
We have a video question that's coming up. Christopher, if you could leave them on stage. But so we come back to this intersection of design and assessment across the intersection of technology. Solange Lalonde, greetings.
You're muted. Hit the mic button.
Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah.
There we go. Hello. Hi, Maria. Nice
Hello.
to see you again. Nice to see you, Brian. I just wanted to share that we've been using Coursetunes in the development of our new Learn Moodle curriculum, and it's been really fundamental. We've used the UNESCO and International Bureau of Education curriculum development, and really to focus on that curriculum architecture when it's a process. And Coursetunes has really helped us in the design, and I know it'll help us in the communication piece as well, because it can capture that mind shift from where we're going from teaching about content and teaching, this is what you need to know. Here's a checklist, here's a standardized exam, to the shift of what does it look like when we're talking about digital competencies? What does that look like in teaching and learning practice? And I think those are some really key things that Coursetunes has been, really helpful for us to be able to use. And yeah, just look forward to playing more with the software.
There's super fun things coming. We're gonna build amazing stuff. So
Solange, where are you?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta. So I work very remotely from Moodle headquarters. I'm part of the education team, and just pretty excited to be able to move forward with some of the work that we're doing.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
It's a really good contribution. And friends, we are just at the end of the hour. We have run out of time. We have time if you have one last question or a comment that you'd like to fling in. This is your last moment before the door closes. We can come back, and this is why asynchronous video is invented. But while people are thinking about that, Maria, I just want to say this is, I really appreciate the chance to talk with you, the chance to connect you with people in the forum community. I think your work really comes at an unusual angle where you get to intersect problems in different ways than most people see. I really appreciate our ability to learn from you on this. And I'm also just really geeked out about Coursetune. It's a really cool tool. I look forward to seeing where it goes. And please, if you can, stick around to chat with people afterwards. But otherwise, thank you again. I'm looking forward to catching up with you later.
okay.
Friends, we have... I want to tell you about the next week and the next couple of weeks what we're working on. Just to begin with, on Monday, so this is coming up fast, our next guest is Michael Horn, who's with Entangled Solutions. Michael has been working on questions of disruption, innovation, education, and technology for quite some time. He's a brilliant person with a lot of great controversial insights. So let's take a look next Monday, on how innovation plays out with technology and education. Now, also, if that's not enough for you to work on, we have more coming. Our book club is starting off. Next week, we begin reading Walk Away by Cory Doctorow. This is a near-future science fiction novel trying to imagine some ways that a post-scarcity future can unroll. We'll be having Cory as a guest in a few weeks, so if you can join us, grab a copy of Walk Away from your library or Amazon or wherever you can, and you can ask him questions here on the forum. On Monday, we'll have our first blog post describing the first few chapters of the book. And if you'd like to get a copy of the book, or if you'd like to get other books of the future education, you can go to our bookstore online, which has tons and tons of titles curated just for you, including books written by Future Trends Forum guests. And if on top of that, you'd like to continue our discussion on social media, there are all kinds of ways. You can find me on Twitter. You can find Shindig on Twitter. There's the hashtag FTTE, and you can keep all this conversation going. Let me thank everybody today for such great questions from Maria. Really appreciate your creativity, insight, and vision. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.